Friday the 13th.
Yeah, okay. Well, welcome back, everyone. My name is Joe Wrights, and this is KreweChat. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you missed a previous episode, feel free to check them out either on the Marketo community or on the YouTube channel. We definitely keep the conversation going in the community. Add comments or anything there. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to see any of these or any kind of like tutorial tips and how-tos just added to the channel on a semi-regular basis. If you have any questions during the episode, please feel free to use the hashtag KreweChats. We normally point to our lower third here that has the hashtag on it. However, we can't get those to work today. So hashtag KreweChat, spelled K-R-E-W-E, chats, one word. But yeah, so barring that, just quick intros. My name is Joe Wrights again, strategist at Fathom. And our fun fact for today is, what are your New Year's resolutions, and if you have any, and have you broken them yet? So mine has been to begin training for the Summit 5K, and yes, I have sucked at training for it. So, Dory.
Hey guys, Dory Viscagliosi, Senior Marketing Operations Manager at Datto. I just don't bother with New Year's resolutions. So I guess you could say I'm succeeding at them or I'm failing at them, whichever. Is the glass half full or is it half empty? Yeah, sorry, I'm lame.
Looks like I'm next.
Yep.
I'm Rachel Egan. I do growth and marketing operations for TubeMogul for the next, 5 hours. And then starting on Tuesday, I will be at Adobe doing the same thing. And my New Year's resolution, I don't really have New Year's resolutions, but I am trying just in life to not eat anything of my food allergies, and I am not succeeding very well. So, I'm not supposed to eat wheat. Had a hamburger the other day, full glutinous bun. So, yay me.
I ain't trying to live forever.
Exactly. Exactly.
Next up is Jules.
Hi everyone, so excuse the voice because I'm full of cold. I'm Julie James, Assistant Professor of Marketing at St Edward University. New Year's resolution, trying to get fit. I'm doing okay so far. I'm at the gym 3-4 times a week at the moment. However, I'm full of cold, so I haven't been today. So we'll see how long that lasts.
Andy.
Hi, I'm Andy Kemp. I'm the Conversion Marketing Manager at Biz Library. And like everyone, I didn't set myself up for success or failure with a New Year's resolution, but I am trying to read more. Like, always have a book that I'm trying to go through. And right now I'm reading a biography on Bill Murray.
That's awesome. And as a special treat today, we have with us Jess Cow from Digital Pie. So Jess, I'll let you introduce yourself.
All right, I'm Jessica Cow. I'm the Client Services Director over here at Digital Pie. New Year's resolution was to try to get more in shape by working out at least like 30 minutes a day, a couple times a week, doing something that I'm not very good at, like cardio.
Preach.
And because I teach yoga on the weekends.
Nice.
Cool. But I hate cardio and I hate anything to do with running. Yep. So I did it like once. So yeah, and I thought about it. But yeah, it's not going so well. But 5K Summit, I'm gonna cheer you on. Who was it? Was going to say, I'm going to have like, I'll be the one holding lattes and handing one to you, Joe.
Yeah, that'll be me.
Right? Oh, awesome. High five.
I
think Joe's the only one that's going to be running.
We'll cheer you on.
I'm going to get with Katie. Just put that taco truck just like 50 feet in front of me. I will sprint.
I like that.
Yeah, so I guess we established ourselves as like the best running club to join at Summit. But yeah, with those intros out of the way, this is the first time we've gotten together for the year. So, we thought we kind of strategized our next few episodes of content. We thought we'd hit the ground running and talk today about some advanced reporting best practices and just cover off on a few things that you need to know and leave you with a framework for, the kind of analytics you're going to need to show success in your instance, like today. or as soon as humanly possible. So for those of you that may have attended the recent Chicago Marketo User Group, Jess is a familiar face. She joined us there and delivered an amazing workshop. So it was so good, in fact, that she not only presented to the Silicon Valley mug that she leads, the Chicago User Group, but now we want to make sure that we kind of capture her brain forever in YouTube form. So despite the fact that we are supposed to be mortal enemies and hate each other working for other agencies, Jess is good people, and you know, we wanted to make sure that, you know, the champion voice is heard across the board for Marketo expertise. So and at the end of the day, we're all people, so whatever. So all that aside, you know, we're gonna just jump right in. All right. So first thing, and I'm just gonna throw this one over to you, Jess, is, you know, where do you start? Where do you even start with reporting?
With reporting, you always start with the end in mind, which is what is the question that you want to answer? Like before you even start creating your marketing programs or executing your marketing tactics, you want to ask, you know, you really want to start with what's the question you're trying to answer. Now, you know, in working and being a Marketo customer for so many years and helping so many other companies with their Marketo instance and their reporting, you know, usually what you do is you go and you ask your VP of marketing or your CMO or CEO, hey, what do you want to look at? And sometimes they'll come back with some kind of answer. Sometimes it's a little vague, and sometimes they just kind of stare at you like stuff. But at the end of the day, what I've noticed and observed over the years is that it all boils down to the same thing. They want to know where their money went, what worked and what didn't, and how do you do more of what's going to work, and how do you do less of the shit that's not going to work, right? Right. I mean, when I presented at the user groups, it's really about what is the marketing tactics that are bringing me, because ultimately you're just trying to bring in the right people that's going to buy your product at your company, right? So am I bringing those people in? Are they buying? Am I bringing the right people in? Do I do more of that? I do the stuff that isn't, or stop doing the stuff that isn't going to work, and then stop doing dumb shit. So anyway.
Which is just excellent life advice in general. So, like, you know, one thing I'm hearing in that is, like, would you agree or disagree with this statement and qualify it with, you know, it's better to decide for yourself what it is you want to report on rather than like have someone come to you and tell them what they want?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I mean, obviously, you know, you have to make your, you know, you want to make your boss happy too, right? I mean, if they have some ideas of what they want to report on, or if you can understand how the business is driven, usually that comes from the CEO, the C-suite, the sales organization. Usually your company is structured in such a way, right? Like if you are going after enterprise versus SMB and you have distinct sales teams that are going after that, that's an easy, hey, that's how the company is structured. So you want to report along those lines. If your company is divided into target industry segments, then it's a pretty easy thing to assume that that's the way that you want to, what you want to report on. But what's really going to make you, what you can make you look like a rock star is, instead of waiting for someone to tell you what they want to report on, which I did. I spent the, you know, beginning of my career asking my boss, hey, what were the reports that you want to see? Thinking that that was the right thing, you know, the best practice thing to do. And over the years, I've just learned, like, yes, you have to take into consideration what they want, but sometimes they don't know what they want. They're so strategic. They're so high level. You know, basically, you know, they gave you $1 million. They just want to know what happened to it, and did it work and did it not, and what are you going to do about it? So I think it's also equally important to, you know, as owners of Marketo, as, you know, marketing operations or demand gen people, or the people that are on the ground running and executing on an everyday basis, for you to come up with the questions that you want to ask, and it really, and let the guiding principles of what do you do more of and what do you do less of be that guide with the question, with trying to drive the questions that you want to answer. Because with reporting, there's the opposite problem, which is, instead of not knowing the questions that you want to ask every possible question. So I see both extremes, which is they want, you know, people want to slice and dice the data. I want to know, you know, if they visited the website and they came in from Google and they downloaded, you know, this white paper, how many people, right? Like,
there is what I call analysis paralysis, especially in the academia world, which I've come from. We can analyze for the sake of analyzing. And my second theorem for the day is, generate reports and analyze things that are actionable. So a lot of times when I'm thinking through reporting, it's like, okay, before I spend all this effort trying to generate this report, what would I do with the data? Okay, if the data showed that I have 10 pieces of content and different, this is the amount of revenue that came in from each of these pieces of content, what would I do with that data? Is that useful for me?
I want to jump in here also and say that I think that we all, I guess I'll speak for myself. So I face some struggles where people will come to me and say, hey, how did this email perform? Or how did this do? Or how did that do? And I, for a while I was just saying, okay, well, here's the data here, here's this report that I could pull from you. But now I've started asking them, like, what do you want to know? Like, you need to be the one to ask them that. You need to be the one to educate them on, kind of the right questions that they should be asking, because they don't know how to ask questions. We are supposed to be the experts in this field. So we're supposed to be the ones to educate them, make sure that we are asking and answering the right questions. And like Jessica said, yeah, we do need to, we do need to sometimes say, okay, CMO man, you get what you asked for. Here's your reporting the way that you asked for it to be done. But also, it's our job to educate our teams on how we're going to use that data. Okay, so if this email had X percentage of opens, what does that mean? How are you going to use that data to inform future decisions? So definitely be the master of your own domain in that.
Yeah, and something I see a lot, and I'm sure everyone else does too, is like trying to get past that early stage. Like you're mainly concerned with vanity metrics, right? Like that email open rate and the clicks and all that. Like moving it a little bit more strategic and showing like the value of Marketo. That's where we go from like basic reporting that you can just pull from the canned reports and analytics to the more advanced stuff using RCE or another tool like it. But like as part of the user group discussion, after we got off the call and Jess presented all this amazing stuff, one thing that we kind of had to dial back on was just the topic of attribution. I know we've covered this on another chat elsewhere, one of the other previous 12 episodes. But can someone just like very quickly just describe what attribution is and kind of delineate between first touch and multi-touch?
I'm happy to jump right in. Okay, so for attribution, first touch and multi-touch. First touch really answers the basic question. Did this program, when you're looking at attribution, did this program bring into the database people that are going to be attributed, that are the right people, that are going to be attached to pipeline and opportunity? Mm-hmm. So, the programs that are going to perform well on first touch and multi-touch might be very different because they're answering fundamentally two different questions. Multi-touch attribution is basically receiving credit for basically a touch on one of the many touches to the people that have reached success that are attached to pipeline and opportunity. So the fundamental question that multi-touch is going to be answering is, did this program have influence on the funnel, on the pipeline, on close one type of revenue? I'm sure there's many different ways that you can slice and dice the definition of multi-touch, but I like to start from what is the business question that you're trying to answer when you're trying to look at first touch and multi-touch. And I don't know if you guys want to go into the kind of the more the nitty-gritty, but for those of you who want to kind of geek out about how first touch and multi-touch is calculated, when I ran demand gen, I made everyone do those word problems. I don't know if you remember from Marketo University. Yeah, everyone on my team does those 20 word problems. Jane walked into a trade show and Joe from the same company downloaded a webinar, and then there was an opportunity opened. Those are like really good set of exercises take you about an hour to really learn and understand how the calculations are being done. Super important, I think, if you're going to start presenting, first touch and multi-touch type reports to your boss, to the CMO. But those are the things that are going to get you a seat at the revenue table when you start talking about first touch and multi-touch revenue types of things.
Yeah. Does that, just while we're on that topic, does anyone know what's happening to the cert? Has anyone heard on? There used to be the RCA certification, but I know that's getting sunset.
Mugs would probably know the most, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think I know I haven't heard anything new, but
I remember seeing an email somewhere that was being sunsetted and they were going to come up with something new.
Yeah, there's only like a dozen of us that have the cert. So
are we all here?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Oh, just curious. So just to recap, so First Touch is good at showing what programs are really good at acquiring leads. Multi-touch showing what programs are successful at having some kind of success event on, or yeah, whatever. So whether it's downloading a white paper or attending a show or something like that. So, moving just down our little agenda here, First Touch multi-attribution is super useful. That's how you can get down to showing actual ROI. When it comes to just building just awesome, perfect reports, like what are kind of like the key building blocks of those? Like if everybody just wants to go down the line and share like their number one tip for like, you should probably think about this or that. What's that one thing to you?
I'll go first. Just clean data. And I say that because I just run into that all the time. Just making sure that the data you have is the right data in the right fields. That's pretty much it right there. Make sure that your data is clean so your reporting is correct.
Yeah, going off of that, in addition to having good, clean data, having everything kind of organized in actionable channels, and outlining really what you feel are those things, the ways that you're bringing in names and how you're able to break those down, and also identifying successes at the right points. Yeah. So not attributing success too early, possibly not attributing it too late, but really kind of keeping it, and also within that, probably not getting too granular. So keeping it, again, actionable, and that's what we find.
Jess said something that resonated with me on that point at Chime Mug last. It was like something to the effect of, you don't want, if you set the threshold too low for success, you're gonna like spread the attribution thin. Like
Well, yeah. I am from Digital Pie. We talk about pie a lot, whether it's apple pie or the mathematical pie. So I like to use the analogy, right? I mean, it's sticky, like apple. Like basically, if you have too many programs reach success for a person, every time they reach success for a person, it takes a piece of the pie, right? So if you have, and I run into this a lot when people want to make email opens and email clicks as a success, because you need to understand the ramifications on reporting, which is, if I set success at clicks emails, and I, have closed one revenue of $100,000, and I clicked on 4 emails and I attended 1 trade show. Well, guess what? 4/5 of the pie of the revenue is going to go to email, and 1/5 is going to go to trade show. And if you look at the overall data, that's probably not going to be really useful when you're trying to understand what you should do more of and what you should do less, because emails is gobbling up all of your pie. So that's a great.
But also, email usually has a call to action, right? So you would actually probably want the call to action to be the success at that point and not the email.
Exactly. So adding to what you were saying about, successes, basically having a very strategic way of outlining an agreement on what are the channels and what are the successes. Maybe it shouldn't be clicked, and it should be when they actually download the white paper or register for the webinar. So that's
I want to jump in on that too. We do measure email clicks, we have some built out logic, so it's not just like bot traffic that's clicking on the email. We have some logic that's built out so that it's a little bit more in depth than that, but it's within email programs. And when we're analyzing the success of our marketing programs, we exclude email programs. And so if we're looking, like, we basically treat them completely differently than we would any other email or any other program in general. So if we're looking at, the success of our case studies or our white papers or, all of those, product-based programs as well as events and stuff, we completely disregard email data from that and exclude those programs so that we can focus specifically on, on the programs that we know actually matter, because we are going to continue sending emails, and you can look at email performance separately to help inform that strategy versus, how many events should we host this year, and, should we focus more on case studies or white papers or whatever. So that's my 2 cents on that as well.
Yeah, exactly, that there is some kind of strategy. And the great thing about Marketo is that you can make an entire channel be operational, so you can exclude it from reporting, or you can do it at the individual program level. But it's just having that strategy and knowing, when you do something here, or what the impact is on reporting.
Yep. Jules, did I may have missed it. Did you share your #1 top tip?
I didn't, but my #1 is probably speak to sales. Work closely with sales and find out what they deem success to be, because we say downloading a white paper is useful, but actually it might be they only think the most success is having a conversation at a trade show. So it's getting that even balance between what we as marketers believe and then what sales guys think is success. And if you can get a nice balance of the two, I think you can then have really, really good reporting that everyone is agreeing on what those KPIs are before you go ahead and do it.
And shameless plug for Rachel and anyway, our session at Summit is about that. So like sales and marketing alignment, the lead life cycle, like getting that closed loop reporting, and so doing all that, all the stuff your mama never told you about moms. So
I was just going to say, everything comes back to sales and marketing alignment. It all comes back to sales and marketing alignment. Communicate with sales.
Yeah. And that's what I teach my students, is it's sales and relationship management and sales and marketing alignment. Teach the students that, and then they'll know that when they come out.
Yep. And just because I'm keeping an eye on the clock, and I want to make sure we at least mention these things, a couple other like really big ones that were brought up is like always be taking care of acquisition program. If you're importing a list, Marketo makes you tag an acquisition program, and if they fill out a local form, they have to do it. But if you're like me and you prefer to put forms in the design studio and reference them in individual programs, then you need to make sure you're manually setting acquisition to the right program in the right time, and also making sure you're not overwriting it. Like something dumb like not having, if acquisition program is empty, then do it. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've seen people with good intentions accidentally overwrite the acquisition program.
You can also block it from flow steps. Updating.
True. Yeah.
Also, I would say a good way to double check your acquisition programs to make sure that you're setting all the things that you need to set when somebody enters your system. Have a report that you send to yourself. I get a report sent to me every Friday that make sure that lead source is set and that all new leads have acquisition programs. And if they don't, I can double check what's going on and where that flaw in my logic was. And luckily for me, I've been doing this for a while, and so now I don't have very many of those that come through. And if they do, they're from like third-party sources, like our video partner that we don't actually have set up properly. But that's a great way for especially beginners to double check that everything's set up properly.
Yep.
Don't get complacent and stop looking at those reports.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
Well, it's interesting. One of the analogy that I talked about at Chai Mug was how reporting was like training for a marathon, and given that I hate running. But it's like
There's credibility.
ironic. Isn't it kind of ironic? But it's like, reporting isn't like this one-time thing. It's you have to train. It's almost like you have to train for it. You have to do it every day or once a week. We have all these reports that help us report better, like the empty acquisition or lead source reporting. But it is, to get reporting right, I'm watching the data multiple times a week.
Yeah.
So go train for your reporting marathon. I'm going to do it right here, sitting in the comforts of my desk.
So like along those lines, you know, I actually have a client right now that a big portion of how they're missing on reporting, and something we're addressing, is just like, you know, when they deployed Marketo, setting the right channels and progressions, and then also like from the day-to-day, like setting those progressions accurately, has been a challenge. But, you know, how do you go about, you know, thinking of that? How do you go about architecting the right channels? Like what is a good channel and what is a bad channel? Because I know we can probably all think of examples of each.
I've seen examples of what's a bad channel. List import. I've seen that on, you know, fills out form. Not a channel. Not a channel. We should have a game called Not a Channel. Right?
I'm just envisioning like the X from Family Feud. Just nope.
Yep. The way that I like to talk about channels is it's a tactic, and it's you have a start line and a finish line, and you want to get someone to run in one direction, just like how the channels work. Right? So if you're at a trade show, that's a channel because that's a tactic. And what's the end goal? The end goal is you want them to run to the finish line and request a meeting. So that's kind of how I get to thinking about channels. Some other ones that I use for to help with my reporting, I always have a sales generated channel to put all the leads that were created from sales in there. I have a content channel as a kind of a master counter for assets. So like if I have a white paper and I promote it across 5 different you know, mediums like paid or organic or content syndication or something, I have like a master program that's counting all of them. So I have a separate content channel. And it's up to you whether you want to divide it up between content white paper, content video, content webinar, or if you just want to lump it all into one. But those are the kind of strategic things that you got to be thinking about, like before you start setting things up. So before I even set up a program, I always talk about reporting. How do you want the reports to look like? What do you want to see? What do you want to see in comparison?
Yeah, and you said something again that was just very insightful the other day on, you know, like aligning your budget to the overall like program strategy and program structure. You know, like what can you kind of just like cover off on that again, and like what the best practice program structure looks like and how that is how that all ties together? Yeah.
So if you think about, because in the best practice, you should be adding costs to your program so you can ultimately understand the ROI, the cost for opportunity, the cost for people. So for example, if you have you know, you have a trade show program, you have a trade show budget. A lot of times, you know, if you go to a trade show, you'll have multiple things going on. You might host a dinner, a party, a workshop, a sponsorship, but it all rolls into one budget, $100,000. So what I have seen is people try to split that out. It's like, hey, I threw a party, I'm going to put it in the party channel, and if I have a booth, I'm going to put it in the booth channel. But the problem is your dollars is one bucket. It's $100,000. It's very difficult to be able to split that out. So from a reporting standpoint, what happens is when it is split out, you're going to see that, I mean, in one case, you know, there was a $0 attribution to these names over here because we couldn't split the budget out, but it was a one-time payment to the trade show organization over here. From a reporting standpoint, there are other ways to get to the data, but by putting them all into one program. Same thing goes into like LinkedIn ads, Google ads, Facebook ads, things like that. If you do want to break them out, which is a best practice, to break the programs out by your campaigns, and that's like a whole other conversation, but it's important to be able to also break out your costs. So if you're breaking your LinkedIn ads by 3 different industries and you've got tons of campaigns going, one of the things that I have seen where you got to make sure that you're also getting your costs you know, broken out by that as well in order to get the full advantage of reporting. And the same thing goes, like, for example, I have some companies whose online advertising budget includes paid social and PPC and everything lumped in together. So then we create one channel to put it all together, because you really, when you report out, you're like, okay, I invested $50,000 this year on paid online stuff. Didn't matter if it was Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or Google, then it goes into all one because that's how your budget is organized. If you've got separate departments, like, hey, this other department over here owns social, but I own PPC, and there's separate budget line items, then you probably want to break them out into 2 separate channels and then feed into 2 separate budgets, because your decision makers, who's going to get refunded again and not, might be separate. So that's where budget can help you guide your channels as well as your reporting.
Anyone else have anything on that before I hit the last thing? Cool. Yeah, I think that's just so brilliant. So I think we've timed this mostly well. We're a minute over, but like, what are the, like kind of parting shots, like things that people should keep in mind, as they build the right reporting structure? Like, again, going down the line of like the one most important thing to you.
I'll start this time because otherwise I'm going to run out of something to say. Test, try it, test it, try it, iterative loop. Keep testing and changing until you get to, you'll never get to perfection. Unfortunately, I wish we could. But testing, trial, test, trial, until you get to that report that is as close as you can, that everyone is actually happy with.
I mean, that's marketing, right? Guess, check, recheck, guess again. Like
it's with everything.
Yeah.
I'll jump in after that too. I think that it's important to give yourself time to develop the right structure. Don't just assume that, don't just say, hey, yeah, we'll have a reporting structure built by the end of the week. That's just not realistic. You're always going to find things that you can do better, like Jules said, like testing and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. But what a lot of people don't realize is that it takes a long time to get data where it is digestible. So cut yourself some slack and take time to actually build the structure that works, rather than just filling a need because you need to check off a checkbox that says, hey, we have a marketing dashboard.
Yeah, I'll jump in and add, don't boil the ocean. You only get it all right all at once, kind of what some others were saying. But start small. Start with something that is manageable. Start with something that that the data is clean, or you can go and clean. If it's trade shows, you can carve out your little box. Start with trade show reporting. Pull those right people in, right acquisition, right success step, produce a report. And use those reports to justify more resources for reporting and show the insight from those reports.
It's gonna be Dory or Andy.
You guys have really covered it, right? When it comes to just guess and check.
I'm a little bit of a sadist. I just like watching you guys like, it's not gonna be me, it's gonna be her.
Rude. Well, I'm just going back to what Julie said, just guess and check. I think I am a huge worrywart when it comes to not having everything together all at once, and that's probably really just a desire for perfectionism, but in no way am I. So just starting out with something small and making sure that, one, the data is clean, it's going into the right fields, and then that you've set up your program correctly to where you know how to measure the success of the program or whatever you're working with within Marketo.
Yeah.
And then I guess mine would be to make sure that before you go and start distributing information about what's been successful or what hasn't, kind of confirm with others that that's either what they were expecting to see or whatever else, because once you've put numbers out there, you're kind of a little bit married to them. You can go back and you can divorce them, but that's kind of ugly, and it's just
there's so many marriage metaphors happening.
Yeah, it's like, much better off making sure that your numbers are right and that you're going to the altar with the right person before you decide to do that. So it's not in Vegas this year, so we don't have to worry about people getting married and
marrying numbers.
At least she's not saying if you don't like your kid, you can just, leave it at the fire station. I mean,
Joe, don't get any ideas.
Oh, God.
Okay, this went downhill really quick. I'm sorry.
It's all good. I love it. I think if I had to encapsulate mine, it's something Jess said early on, is like the analysis paralysis. I have experienced that directly around, you know, like we don't know what we want to report, so we're just going to sit here and not report on anything when we have the whole infrastructure ready to go. Like hindsight, it's 2020, but I'm just looking back thinking like, man, we could have just shown the organization so much value with reporting, but we just were so too afraid. And like, what are you going to break? You're not going to break anything. I mean, like, worst case, you have to parse the numbers a different way. Like, no one dies in marketing.
That is true. You know, I used to use that a lot in in one of my companies ago, you know, when hair's on fire and like, we got to get this email out. And it's like, you know what? No one's going to die. This email doesn't go out.
So Marketo, that should be our next shirt for Summit. No one dies in marketing.
Marketing.
Yeah, that'll be the KreweChat's next fun fact was, what was your t-shirt idea for that purple selection?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
We need smugs for that one for sure. So I know we're a little bit over. Thanks for sticking with us a little longer. This has been another episode of KreweChat. Special thanks to Jess for joining us and the rest of the crew for hopping on. We'll be back in 2 weeks. I'm not sure which thing we're talking about next, but I know we've got a couple things primed, ready to go. So see you guys soon. Take care.
Yeah.